everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr and also with Kevin Noon because this is our Friday live show. First, Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's Friday afternoon. We get to go cover a football game tomorrow. It is going great. Tony, how are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you for asking. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing well. I'm not going to have some long pause there. That's just not how I roll. We are 24 hours away from kickoff, and nice to be back after the open week. But the open week was fun with a lot of great football to watch.
Yeah, it was. And remember, we don't really do a lot of preparation for the show, so we need your interaction during the show to get us through this hour, or else it's just going to be the three of us standing against a wall like King of the Hill, just a bunch of yep, stuff like that. And of course, Tom has Boom Hour, as we all know. But
tell you what, boy,
that'll just be Tom with his SEC voice.
But sped up to like 2.5 times, which is that just makes it Jimbo Fisher voice.
That's very accurate. Tom, before you got on here, you were late getting to the show. Kevin and I were talking for the past 15 minutes-ish.
15 seconds.
Whatever. You know, it's all units of measurement, and time is a flat circle, as we know. I think I have figured out the Big Ten tiebreaker. Just so I know, we were trying to talk through it last week or the week before in one of these shows. And it was very confusing. And I think I have the final tiebreaker, assuming at this point Penn State loses to Michigan, which they have. Penn State beats Ohio State. Ohio State beats Michigan. So you've got this 3-team tiebreaker, tying situation in the Big Ten. And it eventually comes down to the record of your common opponents within the Big Ten. And we know that as going through their schedules. So you're looking at their common opponents in the Big Ten West, which is just Northwestern. So that is their only Big Ten common opponent in the West. So everybody's going to beat Northwestern. And then it eventually comes down to, as I have read it, and again, this is not 100%. I'm not 100% sure on this because tiebreakers are incredibly difficult. It comes down to the record of your non-divisional opponents. And
so who you played from the West? So it's Wisconsin and Illinois. No, Wisconsin and Northwestern and
Iowa
versus Nebraska. Michigan plays Nebraska and
Iowa
and
Illinois.
Oh, and Illinois. Oh man.
Wait, no, Northwestern is not.
Northwestern is not, yeah.
So I don't even know if that one counts. And if there's no 3 common opponents in the Big Ten West, I don't know that you can even include that one. But yeah, no, I was struck by the record of the non-divisionals because, as you said, Michigan is Iowa, Nebraska, and Illinois. Illinois is a killer there. And then Penn State is Purdue, Northwestern, Minnesota. So the way I read this, Ohio State might be on the bottom of that 3-tier of that 3-team tiebreaker because of their non-divisional opponents. If in fact,
don't lose.
Your opinion,
that's good advice. I got to tell you, go back to August 30th and tell everyone. Not only is Illinois potentially going to win the West, Illinois might also be the deciding factor in who wins the East. The whole Big Ten it's just all Illinois as far as the eye can see.
Oh, Bert.
Good thing that TV contract is already signed. That's all I can say on that subject.
Yeah, and the Big Ten wasted no time in starting to suck before that cash got in there. They're like, this has been a bad season for the Big Ten, but they've got their money, so it's all good. Let's talk about this question from El Suzabo. Does our quarterback room get fixed this week for Penn State or for the season? And we saw George. Yeah, go Tom.
How would you know whether it was fixed or not this week? what does not fixed look like against Iowa? A wide receiver with 3 catches for 27 yards. Like what does a not fixed quarterback room look like this week?
And since our main targets are tight ends, I mean that's generally you're not going to have a corner on a tight end. So yeah, this is not a week that you're going to really get to see anything, in my opinion, for that.
Yeah, I think the bigger question is Jordan Hancock back? How full go is he if he is back? There's going to be pitch counts for some players this week, so is he back? We saw him on the practice field or coming off the practice field, looked like he was dressed and had gone through whatever on Wednesday. But yeah, like if they're giving up 50-50 balls like against Iowa, yeah, that's not great, but it's Iowa. It doesn't really tell you much. So yeah, again, I don't know that we're going to learn how good these corners are until much later in the season. And by then maybe it's too late, or by then they'll be good enough to handle it. And yeah, if they give up some catches this week, that would be bad. Now, depending on the catches, and they may be trying to keep everything in front of them. The corners may be trying to keep everything in front of them as well. Who knows? But yeah, like Carl's A Gasser says here, Jordan Hancock back, maybe a pitch count like they did with Cam Brown early in the season. Do you guys, Tom, are you expecting Jackson Smith and Jigba back this week? Ryan Day had some pointed comments on Thursday when asked if Jackson Smith and Jigba had looked better in practice this week to make him feel like he is better rather than saying he's going to play. Ryan Day just said, yes, he's gotten more confidence that Jackson Smith and Jigba is playing better from watching him on the practice field. And that's about all they would give us. But are you expecting him to play this week?
First of all, I need to go back to the idea of Iowa throwing 50-50 balls. Spencer Petras is completing 54% of his passes. So pretty much every Iowa pass is a 50-50 ball. Now, Jackson Smith and Jigba, again, this is either the greatest psyop in college football history, where everyone is, well, no one wants to say, but everyone is sort of like, well, I certainly possibly couldn't tell you that whether or not Jackson Smith and Jigba will be back this week and playing, sort of a normal rotation. But we're excited to have Jackson Smith and Jigba back, and it's really going to help the offense to have Jackson Smith and Jigba back this weekend. Now, I mean, Tony, listen, it's possible. Like, is this like the CIA has taken over the Ohio State football program and they're just like running psyops and or it's Russian disinformation, perhaps? Marvin Harrison is, some kind of a Russian bot. I don't know. I mean, it's possible. I don't think you can rule it out. I think, though, it's likely that you see Jackson Smith and Jigba this weekend. I don't like to go out on limbs and give you hot takes all the time, but I think that's probably the most likely, explanation for what's going on here.
Kevin, please embrace debate.
I was too busy shaking my head at this Tony Gerdeman's burner account post, so I got a little distracted for a second. But
please read that for us if you would.
Only if I can do it in an SEC voice. But I'm so glad that Tony is one of the rare people in the world that is both handsome and smart. He's not just here as the eye candy of the show. He's also here as the brains of the show.
I will say that every part of that post is equally true. I will say that.
As for JSN, yeah, I mean, I've gone round and round. I mean, I'm not going to get into all the psyops involved here and Havana syndrome and everything else that's going on. But I tend to think that he's coming back this week. I really do. You definitely need to have him on a pitch count. You need to see how he responds on Sunday. How he feels at that point and kind of go from there. I mean, there's no reason to go out there and run the risk of anything crazy. But with that being said, if you just say, okay, well, we're going to sit him another week, and then he has to kind of come out and hasn't had a chance to really run around against people not wearing either scarlet or gray against Penn State, are you putting them in the best situation? So, maybe it's best to kind of test a couple things before you get into that. You involve so many of these quote unquote Jackson plays in practice, and then you lose them after a series.
I am interested to see how the Iowa Hawkeye defense reacts to him being out on the field, whether they double him immediately and bracket him or just treat him as anybody else on the Ohio State offense. And Ryan Day has talked so much about how this defense makes you the Iowa defense makes you earn everything you get, and they keep stuff in front of you, and that's all well and good. But who have they faced offensively that tests them? The best passing offense they have faced is either Rutgers or Michigan. Rutgers went for 300 yards on them. Michigan went for about like a $150 because they weren't trying to even really do anything down the field. But they have faced nothing like what they're going to see from Ohio State's offense. And so this respect, it's healthy. I don't know how warranted it is. It's warranted, but like I don't think there's we don't have a great idea of how Iowa is going to do against this kind of offense this year. We've seen them struggle in the past against Purdue, as I've talked about in previous episodes of Buckeye Weekly. And so when you spread them out, they're not as good as when you let's just keep it between the hash marks like Michigan likes to do and like Iowa wants you to do. When you spread them out, bad things happen.
Yeah, and I think that this is largely true of pretty much everyone Ohio State has played this year. I mean, Ohio State is the number one offense in the nation and in scoring and most of, and certainly top five in virtually every way you can slice and dice yardage and yards per play and yards per pass and all that kind of stuff. So largely that has been true of everyone Ohio State has played. It's like, the bad teams have been bad, but they haven't played anyone quite like Ohio State. And the good teams have been good, except they haven't really played Ohio State caliber teams. So I do think there's a real possibility that Ohio State can spread them out, hit, you're not necessarily going to hit big plays, but I think they're going to be able to methodically move the ball downfield. I think that's going to be there. And, this might be a game where Ohio State puts up 30 something first downs. I mean, that's a real possibility that you have a game where it's not 77 points, but you're just kind of constantly moving the chains and keeping the ball moving down the field. This is what Iowa will try and do. And if you can listen to Ross Fulton talk about this on the episode of the morning show, the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning show that dropped last night. What Iowa tries to do is they just want to play a couple deep safeties, keep everything in front of them, and make you be methodical and make you consistently execute. And when you're playing teams that are not Ohio State, the teams that do not have C.J. Stroud or Marvin Harrison or Jackson Smith-Jigba or Emeka Egbuka or Julian Fleming or Cade Stover or Mayan Williams or Travion Henderson, and that's most of the rest of the Big Ten, it's a challenge for those teams to execute consistently enough to move the ball down the field. For Ohio State, I don't know that that's necessarily going to be quite as much of a challenge. So I don't think you're going to see a ton of huge explosive plays, but I think you're going to see a lot of positive plays from Ohio State on Saturday.
You look at the passing numbers, again, the last four games against Iowa, which is 17, 13, 10, and 9. And let's remember, we're talking about a different quarterback than we're seeing in current Ohio State circumstances. But Ohio State hasn't thrown for more than 222 yards in any of the last four games against Iowa. And strangely enough, in those four games, in three of them, Iowa's passing defense held Ohio State to under what their passing defense was giving up for the year. So this is going to be a very different change. Now, for people who are asking, Ohio State also rushed for 127% of Iowa's output in 17, 212% of Iowa's output in 13, and 155 and 185 in the other games. So Ohio State's going to be going about this very differently here with, it's a much more balanced offense than what we maybe saw last year in terms of some of the things that they do. But I was joking with Tony. Tom hadn't made it to OSU at that point. I said, if Ohio State rushes for more than 220 or passes for more than 222 yards in the first half, how many points are you going to give me in your bold prediction show? And we started at 1, and he said that might even be a 2. So I don't know.
What do you think, Tom?
222 yards passing in the first half.
Yes.
That's either a 1 or a 2, because you're on pace for 444, but
is that right?
Yeah. Hey, listen, you've done enough bad math that sometimes I feel the need to say things out loud because you never know. Then it's like you're on pace for a school bus. Like what? That's not even a what? That might be a 2-pointer because the 2009 and 2010 and 2013 Ohio State offenses, and really even 2017 when Ryan Day was there, are really not representative of what Ohio State is going to be bringing to the party on Saturday. But that is 222 would be a lot because they are going to want to try and be balanced. And I think Iowa, the way Iowa plays and keeping guys back, they're sort of inviting you to run and try and drive the ball down the field, and that's something that I think Ryan Day is going to try and. I think Ryan Day is going to be aware of that and try and take what's being given to him. So that I think will hold that passing total down a little bit in that first half.
I also think they're going to run the ball because if you're going to keep two high safeties back, that's going to give Ohio State's running game the advantage. And, that's Ohio State has shown that they're okay doing that this year. And if you've got Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson both back, and both guys will be back, then get them involved and then bring those safeties up. We've talked in the past about how Ohio State will throw the ball to run it. I think this is one of those games where they can run the ball to throw it, assuming Iowa ever comes up and actually tries to stop the run. If they're just okay with, as long as we're giving up 8 yards of play and not 22, we're good. And just making Ohio State burn up clock, moving the ball downfield. It's 8 yards of carry. Is that really that bad? Yes, it's very, very bad. And you should not like that. You should want to stop that. What does Jordan Kapler have to say here? Here's a fact for Tom I think you'll enjoy. In OSU's worst quarters, they're still averaging 6 points a quarter, which means it would only take 15 quarters to eclipse Iowa's 88 total points.
I'm
There's
trying
only
to pull
4
up.
quarters.
Well, I think the worst quarter of each game, if you took the worst quarter of each game, and I'm just pulling up Iowa's schedule right now to check. I think that Ohio State's worst quarter, scoring 24 points, would have been enough to comfortably beat Iowa in 4 of their 6 games, and the 2 losses would have been 27-24 and 27-24. So, and that was 27 points against the Nevada defense and 27 points against the Rutgers defense, which,
No, and half the points in that Rutgers game, I think, were scored on defense.
I think that's right. Yes, I think they scored 2 touchdowns on defense. Yes, and there was a question earlier from DK about the bigger, which is the bigger instance of nepotism: Brian Ferentz as offensive coordinator of Iowa or Charles as King of England. I will point out that the rules say that Charles is the King of England because of who his mom was. The rules in Iowa specifically say you should not be able to hire your kid to do these jobs, and they had to do a workaround where Brian Ferentz has to report to Gary Barta, the athletic director. So it's like, well, you can't have your kid reporting to you. Like, oh, well, the offensive coordinator reports to the athletic director. So no, obviously this is not clearly, why would anyone say that this would be a violation of Iowa's nepotism laws? So just as a traditional athletic department does, the offensive coordinator reports to the athletic director. Sure, absolutely. So to answer your question, yep. That the one where the guy was from birth basically destined to hold a job he's unqualified for. If that answers your question.
Well,
Brian Ferentz is still offensive coordinator because of who his mom is. Because because how does Kirk fire him? It's how was work today, honey? Well, I S-canned our son. Well, it probably was warranted, but you're sleeping on the couch.
Well, also, how do you fire somebody like who is ordained by God to be the offensive coordinator? Just like you're ordained to be the king. Like this is beyond Gary Barta. This is beyond Kirk Ferentz. You can tell Kirk to go against that?
Brian Ferentz got the Iowa job by pulling a first down marker out of a stone. That was how he got the job in the first place. So
we know that's not true.
See, I think we've been overly mean to Brian Ferentz this week, and I will tell you why. I think you have to look at the Iowa offense as jazz. You have to listen. You have to watch for the points that they're not scoring. You have to watch for the first downs that they're not getting. It's not, any inbred hilljack can listen to, look for the points that they are scoring. It's appreciating the artistry of the points that they're not scoring. That's where, that is the, this is the football version, the Iowa football version of the you a simpleton, me an intellectual meme from Twitter. Mm-hmm. You a simpleton, Iowa football doesn't score points. Me an intellectual. But you have to appreciate the points that they aren't scoring.
Brian Ferentz is the King Ralph of the British monarchy. Great John Goodman movie.
I will just say, Tom, that's not jazz. That's the brown note.
We're like a week and a half away from Kirk Ferentz pulling something like that at a press conference, because it's like the answers keep getting worse because he keeps getting asked the question, because it's a very obvious question. Hey, this person that's terrible at his job, why does he still have this job? And is it because he's literally your kid? And the answers keep getting worse and more defensive. And so we are about 2 weeks away from Kirk Ferentz saying, actually, football is like jazz. So you have that to look forward to.
I thought you were going to say he
Bold
was going to play the
prediction.
Brown
If
note.
he says that, 6 points on bold prediction. I'm just calling my shot here.
Yeah, he's going to pull out a recorder and play the brown note. Is that what you're saying, Kevin?
Yes. For Kenny G and Yoko Ono.
But we've all spent the last week plus digging up Iowa stats that have angered us and saddened us. Like Tom has done it. I've done it. Kevin did it for Tale of the Tape. And then we've just like continued to regurgitate, because you've got to get that out. Like you don't want to keep that like in, like you've got to get that out. You've taken it in, you've got to expel it. So we've been doing that on the podcast and the shows this week. So apologies to all of the viewers and listeners who have had all of this just terribleness thrown right at them. But just be glad that you're not listening to or watching an Iowa show every single week, and you're not taking this kind of thing in, because this is poisonous. Like this can do some real damage. Let's see. What does Jordan Kaplan have to say here? Iowa fans should tear down the goalpost this weekend, not because they've won, but because they are completely useless to Iowa. We don't need them. Let's get rid of them. But that's
You're not
true.
even great at kicking field goals either. I mean,
you know what? If Iowa makes it to the 20, they should just be given 3 points. That should be their goal. You have a couple of goal lines. You have the real goal line, which is 7. Have the 20-yard line be another goal line, which is just automatic 3 points. Which now makes me wonder, Tom, if you give Iowa a goal line that starts at midfield, say the 50 is 1 point, the 40 is 2, the 30 is 3, and so on. How many points does Ohio State win by this weekend?
First of all, I think you're looking at this all wrong. I think this needs to be like college football should be done with like a handicap system where it's like golf. Like Iowa gets to play from the red tees. So a kickoff, like a fair catch and a kickoff, they get the ball at the 50 and they start there. And that, that's the way I would prefer. And Ohio State has to start on the 10. Like, sorry, you're playing from what are the black tees, the back ones, I think. So yes, Ohio State's playing from the black tees. Iowa's playing from the reds. And Tony, if they don't get the first down, Brian Ferentz has to coach the next drive with. Well, anyway, I've played golf for a while. Makes me changed. So no, if Iowa had to got 1 point from crossing the 50, 1 for the 50, 2 for the 40, 3 for the 30.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly. First of all, Kirk Ferentz would love that because he could get 2 points for crossing the 40 and still punt from the plus 38.
It's still punt.
So that's like the best of both worlds. Iowa scores points in increments of 2 and gets the punt from plus territory. This is like Xanadu for Kirk Ferentz. But you're probably honestly you score 1 touchdown and or 1 touchdown, and I mean maybe they get to. Maybe they get to 10, 11. Honestly, I don't think it really makes that big of a difference, because how many methodical drives are they going to have? They're going to have how many 3 and outs? If they start on the 25, how many times are they going to pick up 2 first downs to get across midfield? Not that many. I don't think they make it to 14 points even with that modified scoring system.
Ohio State still covers. And the line was 30 this morning. I saw it as 30. Ohio State will still cover. I was giving Iowa, at first I gave them 8, and then I said, well, maybe they force a turnover around midfield and just automatically are gifted some points. So then I got them to like 11, but I could still see Ohio State winning 42-11, because in my prediction I gave Ohio State 42 points. So vis-a-vis with a little math and fingers and toes, Ohio State covers barely.
Tom, one of the reasons I think you would really like this system of football is if, say, Ohio State is at their own 5-yard line and it's like 4th and 6, you're going to go for it, because if you punt it, you're providing all of this opportunity for points to Iowa. So you punt it and it gets to, your own to midfield. Like you're allowing Iowa, like they could get a point for the 50, a point for the 40, 2 points for the 40. So This way, if you just go for it on fourth down, the most Iowa can get if you fail is 7 points. This would be right up your alley. There's no reason to punt because you're just providing the opportunity for Iowa to score more points by punting. So you just keep it rather than if they, because what would be a 50-yard touchdown drive be? It'd be like, 17 points, something like that. I don't know the math really quickly in my head, but a touchdown drive with that kind of rules, it'd be pretty special and would set some records for Iowa.
You don't pull your starters. You don't pull your ones on defense. I mean, if you can have a 17-point play,
it's rocket jock.
It is rocket jock. Yeah, new Iowa quarterback Dan Cortez coming in. Wow, I didn't see this one coming. Yeah, it's See, I didn't understand that it was a cumulative thing. I thought you just got the points for whatever the furthest yard line was. Cumulative, boy, okay. If it's cumulative, you figure they get across the 50 twice, and then the 40 maybe twice, so that's 6, and then the 30 is 9. We get you to 9, and then the 20 gets you to 13, and then the 10 gets you to 18, and then the touchdown gets you to 24, and you kick a PAT for 25. I mean, yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, if you're giving cumulative points there, then yeah, Iowa gets into the mid-20s. Now, if Ohio State gets to play with this scoring system, Ohio State is going to win. I mean, like 272 to 25. But I mean, 25 points, Tony. That's pretty good.
It's very good. Yeah, you give Ohio State that opportunity, and you're looking at Georgia Tech versus Cumberland. And as DK says, yeah, my head is hurting as well. So I think the rules as they stand make the sport easier. I would agree with that. Let's start hitting some of these starred questions, Kevin.
That's one that I just put up there. Right.
Yeah, there. From El Suzabo. Will Ryan Day finally open the playbook from record? Tom, the answer is no. What do you think?
The answer is no. I don't know that this is a Kyle McCord week. Maybe they get this is not a game where Ohio State's going to be up 56-0 at halftime. I don't expect. So it's going to be a little more deliberate, and it's going to be a 30. I picked 38-6. Tony picked 38-10. Kevin picked 42-10. 42-3. Okay.
I really wanted to do 42-2, but I didn't.
Yeah, yeah. You're in that range where Kyle McCord's probably coming in with 7 minutes left in the game, 6 minutes left in the game, and at that point you're in run out the clock, get out of there. You've got to go to Penn State next week. Just get everyone out of there healthy, get the game over with. Don't have anything stupid happen. Don't have everyone get a targeting penalty, whatever. Like, just you're in get out the door mode at that point. So yeah, no, I do not think this is the week that you see Kyle McCord in there slinging it around.
Yeah, I think once it's like 31-7 in the third quarter or whatever, Ohio State's just going to continue to maybe run the ball and, as you said, get out, because you bring in McCord and there's a turnover or Iowa scores and you're right back into what a coach views as a ball game. So they get very nervous about these scores. Kevin, can I have you address this one from Jordan Kapler? No snazzy blue zip up today, Tom?
Yeah, I was very shocked that he was not wearing blue. I mean, he did try and say in another show, the impromptu show that we did from the WAC, that he's handsome in blue or something like that. And then after I stopped laughing, I realized he was being serious. And it'll be nice once we get the rest of our Buckeye Huddle gear in. And for those of you who are watching, if you look down in our comments, you too can dress like your favorite stars. Well, Tom, at least. And order from our Buckeye Huddle shop and be able to get hats, T-shirts, quarter zips, a lot of good stuff there. The link is down below in the comments. I will try and throw it in the chat as well, but no blue from Tom and no blue on any of the stuff in the Huddle store.
That's a shame. But anyway, you can still dress up like your favorite star, Tom. Just find your bluest blue and wear it, and wherever you see your reddest red. That's where you'll fit in the best.
I just do it to antagonize Kevin. That's really the only thing, because he has to read your comments. and then so then it becomes Kevin's problem because Kevin's producing behind the screen. I'm just talking to Tony and looking at the camera. So it really
Tony,
becomes Kevin.
Tony, which angers you more, pro Tom comments or anti Tom comments?
Well, anti-Tom comments don't anger me.
I was gonna say this. How is this a question?
Well, because I was going to ask it to myself, which was really vain because I have to read all of them.
No, I mean, people can be mean, obviously, and there's a lot about Tom to be mean about, but I've learned to just not get upset about that stuff. I learned really quickly. Didn't take much time at all to learn to just let that stuff go and not get angered by anything that people say about Tom. So yeah, I would recommend Kevin do the same. I'm sure it won't be difficult.
Super chat from Yakov 22. I see Penn State, Minnesota as a four quarter one score game.
Yeah, I think I said this yesterday, but with the way Michigan ran on Penn State, how do you not expect Minnesota to have a solid day on the ground with Mohamed Ibrahim back? And he was back last week, ran well, and it's just maybe Penn State learns from their mistakes last week because there were a lot of them. I think Minnesota's going to try to do some of those same things and see if Penn State has learned from them. But if you give up 415 or whatever, 20 yards rushing, it's really hard for me to think you're going to slow down Penn State or slow down Minnesota. But also Minnesota only moves so fast anyway. So yeah, I see a one-score game as well. And is it good Sean Clifford or bad Sean Clifford on that last drive? Tell me that, and I'll tell you who I think is going to win.
Well, and I think Michigan's offense, even with Ibrahim in there for Minnesota, I think Michigan's offense is more dynamic. I think Corum is a better back than Ibrahim is, and J.J. McCarthy is a better quarterback than Tanner Morgan is. Is Chris Ottman-Bell out for the season, or is he back at this point?
I don't believe he is back, but I don't know that for sure.
I think he was out for the season, and so then that's Minnesota not having their best wide receiver, and Michigan's wide receiver unit and tight end unit is probably better than what Minnesota has. So I don't think they're going to be able to run all over Penn State like they did before, like Michigan did last week. But you look at the Penn State whiteout game, and historically people view that as like a 7 or 10 point, home field advantage, like much bigger home field advantage than just an average game at Beaver Stadium or elsewhere. And Penn State's only favored by like 4.5. Last I saw, 4 points. So that tells you the odds makers view it as a pretty even matchup on a neutral field. Colin has a question here about, should Ohio State fans be rooting for Penn State here? Yes, but Chris Ottman-Bell is out for the season. Colin had a question about, should Ohio State fans be rooting for Penn State on Saturday night because, it makes next week's matchup a little more interesting. Boy, I got to tell you, we have already recorded the Saturday morning show, and Tony and I already had this conversation, and you'll hear me say this again on the Saturday morning show, but if Penn State loses this game and they come in on a 2-game losing streak, that 100% guarantees that next week that the Ohio State Penn State game is like a 4-point game with 6 minutes left, because everyone will spend all week going, well, Penn State's terrible and Ohio State should beat them by 47 points. And then that's when you go into Penn State and it's like, what? How is this game 27-24 with 5 minutes left to go in the game? That, Ohio State should be rooting for Penn State for completely other reasons, I think, other than just makes the TV product more compelling.
Yeah, I'd say root for Penn State unless you just don't want that tiebreaker to come into play at all. And then that takes away the 3-team tiebreaker, which we're still not exactly sure of, but that's what happens when you have to go 8 layers deep on a 3-team tiebreaker. So, but yeah, I always tell Buckeye fans, root for the good teams to come into Ohio State with as many wins and as high a ranking as possible, because you never know when that ranking is going to come in handy. Let's see. This from Jordan Kapler. What would Coach Day give up first? An accurate injury report or his family's most special secret recipes? Kevin, you're a foodie, and you are also one who would like an accurate injury report. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm trying to think of what, I'm assuming up in New Hampshire, it's a lot of stews and things of that nature. Chowder, for sure. Fraps. You don't have, not milkshakes. They're fraps up there. FRAPPE. You don't drink from a water fountain. You drink from a bubbler or a bubbler. I lived in New Hampshire for 2 years, so I know these things. I think he would still give up. I think he would still give up that Brunswick stew recipe before he would give us an accurate injury report, just because he's climbed up that hill and he's going to live on that hill and he's going to die on that hill. So let's see if we can get some recipes out of him.
The amazing thing yesterday during the lightning round was you just never know, and we've all faced this where you ask and you're like, I don't know if you're going to answer this question about injuries, and sometimes he will, sometimes he won't, but you go in knowing that there's pretty good chance he won't. Tim May asks yesterday, like, I think he started it off with, Ryan, just I know you don't want to talk about injuries, but Jackson Smith and Jigba, I'm not going to ask you if he's playing, but have you seen enough in practice this week to feel better about his health? And Ryan Day was like, yes, I can answer that. Yes, I feel better. And Tim was like, is that it? And Day's like, that's all you get. and then like 2 minutes later, Dan Hope from 11 Warriors like, hey, Ryan, are you going to get Travion Henderson and Maya Williams back? He's like, yeah, we're going to get them back this week. They'll be playing. It's good to have them back. And it's like, what? I don't – you just – I don't know if the ones he doesn't answer are because those guys aren't playing, or there's more chance that he just doesn't know. Like, you're not definitely sure that they're going to be playing until you see them on Saturday, or if it's one of those things where it's just better if people don't know if Jackson Smith and Jigba is definitely playing. He's when you ask him these questions, you never really know his method or his purpose, but it all starts from the foundation of, I don't want anybody to know anything about injuries, and then you go from there.
Yeah, and he is not completely unique in this as a college football coach. The NFL mandates that teams put out an accurate injury report for gambling reasons. It kind of feels like with the way the world is trending with college, with sports betting being legalized in a lot of places, you might get to that point where the NCAA mandates that, or whatever governing body replaces the NCAA in 5 to 20 years. You might have that becoming a mandatory thing, but until it is, college football coaches are always going to sort of default to, well, it doesn't really do me any good to tell you that, so therefore I'm not going to tell you that. And you go back a few years, and Ohio State was putting out, under Urban Meyer, you could usually get some sense of, Urban Meyer would just kind of sometimes just tell you like, he's going to be out for 4 weeks or whatever. Ryan Day has not done that. Urban Meyer used to put out a depth chart. Ryan Day has that's just sort of like slowly disappeared under Ryan Day and isn't there anymore. And it's like, I mean, is it really like, would it make a material difference in Iowa's game prep to know who the backup left tackle is? No, not really. No. And, but, I wonder how much of that is, you could certainly attribute some of that to, with the transfer portal, if a guy falls off the too deep, is that going to make him more likely to transfer? Well, I mean, the guy is also at practice and recognizes the order people are repping in, so it's not really a secret on the team. So, but it all just sort of falls into that same bucket of like, well, yes, I could tell you that, but what good does that do me? So that's sort of the default position of most college football coaches, unfortunately. And until the college game goes to an NFL type rule on injury reporting or depth charts or whatever, that's probably just the way things are going to continue to trend everywhere.
What do you mean I'm not a second teamer?
Sean Dixon asking, what are your guys' scores for tomorrow? Tom mentioned that a few minutes ago. I went with 38-10, and the 10 is the most difficult part of that, where it's like you're giving them a touchdown. Should you give them – should it have been 2 field goals? And then should you give them an extra field goal? Should it be 13? So it's like somewhere in this 3 to 13 point range. And so I just went with what I believe is the exact average of 3 and 13. I went with 10. Kevin, what did you do?
I picked the correct score, and it's going to be 42-3. I think that it's going to be a game where Iowa is going to keep Ohio State somewhat in check in the first half. I mean, we might sit there and go to the halftime locker room at 21-3 And then the Iowa defense will look at the Iowa offense and be like, you disgust me. And they'll give up 21 in the third quarter because it just sometimes you just lose the will to go on. And then Ryan Day will say, all right, that's it. That's enough. And we might play Iowa again in 5 more years. So we don't want to get them mad and just shut it down in the fourth.
I had 38-6, and yeah, definitely 2 field goals. It just doesn't feel like, unless Iowa's defense scores or Iowa's defense sets them up with a real short field, I don't really see this Iowa defense being able to methodically move the ball down the field because they're rushing for 2.8 yards per carry right now. So you're not going to be able to run over Ohio State. Ohio State's got a pretty good run defense. So they're not going to be able to run the ball. So are they really going to be, they'll hit some stuff. Don't freak out when Spencer Petras hits Luke Lachey or Sam Laporta for 23 yards at some point. Don't throw yourself out of C-deck for that. Like it'll happen a couple times, but that'll get them maybe across the 50 into field goal range or punting range, as Kirk Ferentz likes to call it. And but it just, I don't think they can really sustain anything. I don't expect a 12-play 80-yard drive from any point from Iowa on Saturday. So, you hit a couple big plays, you get into field goal range. He will definitely take the points because that is how he rolls. And then, Ohio State, I think Kevin has it broadly correct. A 21-3 kind of halftime score. Like, yeah, sure, that's fine. And then get another score or 2 after halftime, and then wrap it up. And I think that is going to be, there's a certain point in the week before Michigan where, Tony and I would turn to each other in the press box and go, okay, Ohio State has now gone up 38-3 on whoever they're playing the week before Michigan. And it's like, okay, and now it's Michigan week right now, even though there's still 11 minutes left in the third quarter. I think you might have a little bit of, with Penn State, a trip to Penn State on the road next week. You might have a little bit of okay, it's Penn State week, even though there's 5 minutes left in the third quarter.
Super chat here from Mike Farino. Thank you, Mike. He has a score prediction of 59-3, says Ryan Day isn't going to call off the dogs. He has proven he holds grudges. There is some grudge holding that Ryan Day has certainly had. This one, maybe after 59-3, like after the game, he's like looking into the camera and he's like, take that, TJ Hawkinson, take that, Noah Fant, and like right in your face. And because those two guys were, I think they scored 4 touchdowns between them back in 2017. I don't know how much he holds a grudge or is angry about that one. That one just hurt. So like that was, you have to be as mad at yourself for that loss as you are at Iowa, because I think everybody at Ohio State owns a big piece of that loss.
Yeah, I think if you're going to have a grudge game from Ryan Day, you're probably about a month away from that. And, there's going to be a little degree of difficulty on that. It will not be as easy to roll up the score that weekend as it potentially might be this weekend. But, I think Ryan Day has shown in the past that there are certain coaches he does not mind scoring a few extra points on, or, hypothetically doing a weird non-traditional onside kick in the middle of the second quarter. Like hypothetically, and we definitely don't want to speculate about what possible reasons might be behind that and, potential grudges we might be thinking of there. I don't know that Iowa is a team that, this is like Tony said, this is a team, this is a game that Ryan Day remembers. I don't know this is a, remember the Alamo or remember the, what was the battleship that got blown up in Cuba? Remember the Maine. This is not like a remember the Maine moment for Ryan Day. I think this is more just a, remember it so that you don't get, fall into a trap and then get through the game and get out.
Question here from Todd Gump. Can Iowa score an offensive touchdown without the assistance of a turnover? Kevin, as I look up the Iowa drive chart, which is
short,
well, it's horrendous. It's very fitting for this month. It is a horror movie in and of itself. I think they can score an offensive touchdown without the assistance of a turnover, because you're asking them to do do one thing well over the course of a drive. And yes, that is asking them a lot, but I do think they can. Just real quick, the longest drive of the season for them, I believe, is 87 yards. That was 12 plays. The longest drive in terms of plays that they've had this season was 13. So, Kevin, do you think Iowa scores an offensive touchdown in this game without the assistance of a turnover?
Well, in my score prediction, I'm saying that they don't score a touchdown, period. But I mean, yes, they could score a touchdown without the assistance of a turnover. I mean, Ohio State does have in their defense, there are going to be sometimes some explosive plays that happen. I just don't think that Iowa is going to be able to take advantage of something like that and have a 60-yard catch and run because somebody cheated up or was caught looking in the backfield or whatnot. I think it's going to be a case of, oh, well, we'll get you here in a second. All right, we tackled you for a 12-yard gain. Is going to be kind of what it is. So it's just not an offense that's built for prolonged drives. Anything that happened in that Nevada game, I think we should just cross off of the drive list because that was that was really just playing a high school at that point. And I haven't seen anything from Iowa to lead me to believe that they will. But I mean, certainly there's the chance that it could happen. I mean, the sky cam could fall down and like knock out a player or something like that. You just don't know. I mean, stranger things have happened.
Tom, I've got the drive chart here. I'm going to give you the first two drives of each game for Iowa, the yards. You tell me which one of these, and one of them is a touchdown drive. Just listen in your ears and try to pick out which one is a touchdown drive. So here are the first two drives, and it's 6 yards and 5 yards. Then it's 16 yards and 15 yards. Then it's 13 yards and 20 yards. And it's 10 yards and 1 yard. And then 6 yards and 49 yards. And then 59 yards and 6 yards. So you've got two drives in there that are over 20 yards. Can you pick out the touchdown drive?
Was there a 17 or a 16 or something like that in there?
There was a 16 against Iowa State.
I'm going to say it's did they score a touchdown? I guess which was the game? No, South Dakota State was the one where they scored two safeties and a
field goal,
field goal.
7-3.
There's been so much performance art from this team this fall. I'm going to say 16 yards is the answer.
You are absolutely correct, Tom. That was the first drive against Iowa State. They got the ball via a turnover, and they went 2 plays, 16 yards, the most efficient drive of the season for Iowa, and scored a touchdown. That is Tony, their lone touchdown.
Now it is your turn. All right.
No.
We're going to presume that Iowa scores at least one touchdown on Saturday. At least one. I want you to tell me at what point here in this series of numbers you go, there is almost no chance that they score from this distance. A touchdown from a drive of this distance. Okay. Yep. You may notice a pattern with these numbers. 17.
They can do that.
34.
Oh God, no. They can do that.
Okay. How about the other 34? So 66 yards.
I think that's the extent of it. I think that is possible.
You think that is possible? 66 yards. Okay. And then the opposing 17-yard line, 83.
That would be their second longest drive of the season, and I just don't see that happening. I was, as you're talking, and before I knew what numbers were coming, I'm thinking like 82, 83 yards is the max, and it's going to take 2 20-yard plays in there because they just can't sustain anything. And you're asking them to pick up how many third downs do they need to pick up on an 80-yard drive? Like 4? I mean, this is a yeah.
It would be a lot of penalties. I think that Ohio State would have to shoot itself in the foot and
that's possible.
Or roughing the passer, a couple PIs or whatever. Because here's the thing: if they do try to chuck and duck, and that ball goes all over the place, and you're not paying attention, and you're face guarding or whatever, I mean, there's going to be the potential getting called for PI because of just how that works. I mean, that might be their best offensive play is just trying to throw it up there and hope to get the flag, and because they can't run at all, and Spencer Petras as a quarterback can't run. CJ Stroud will be the much more adept quarterback runner on the field in this game, and it's just going to be bad.
I like the fact that the official motto for 2022 Iowa football on offense: throw it up. It works on so many levels. It's really tremendous. I like that, Kevin. That's some great work. And I mean, you guys
just throw up.
Yeah, I know you guys were like sort of kind of joking about the first, picking up first downs on penalties, but they are. If you want to go back and listen to the show we did on Wednesday, Tony and I, this was one of the 35 facts, or I guess 3 of the 35 facts on about Iowa's offense. They were worse than 100th in the nation in first downs gained by run, first downs gained by pass. They were better than 100th in the nation in first downs gained by penalty, and not like a lot, but they were 90 something in the nation. So yes, that is in fact the way that compared to their peers, they are most likely to pick up a first down is via penalty.
Do you think Ryan Day sent something into the Big Ten prior to the game saying, you guys really shouldn't be calling PI? This guy has no idea where the ball is going.
Every ball is uncatchable.
That's what I'm thinking. Like Spencer Petras will, on their one touchdown drive, he'll complete like 3 back shoulder passes, and he'll get to the sideline, and Kirk Ferentz will be like, "Great back shoulder passes, Spencer." And Spencer will be like, "What's a back shoulder pass?"
He will make good throws from time to time. Like I feel bad for him because he's one of those people that's just getting, the grown-ups are failing him basically. And, I think you have the kind of low information Iowa fan who's like, it's all because Spencer Petras is bad. It's like, no, I assure you it is not all because Spencer Petras is bad. But, he will, we watched the whole Michigan-Iowa game for the Michigan Monday show we did a couple weeks ago. And, he will throw some nice balls. He hit Luke Lachey. It was either Lachey or Laporta down the seam on a really nice ball. But they don't do it consistently. So I would say, the 2 problems that Iowa has on offense is they're not consistent and they're not explosive. Other than that, it's been pretty good for them this season.
Yeah, you can't expect him to just be bad all game. Like he, as you said, he will throw some pinpoint passes, but it requires a lot of coordination, and it's just not the most coordinated offense, so to speak. We know it's well coordinated, but all right, let's get through some of these questions before we get out of here. I lost my screen. Kevin, read a question.
Gary K wants to know, which is higher, the number of points Iowa scores or the number of punts they have? It feels to be like the answer, this depends on, do you feel like Iowa's going to have, what's the cutoff line here? I mean, are we thinking 10 possessions tomorrow? 9 possessions? I mean, it's not going to be a ton. I feel like the cutoff here is probably about 6 or 7 points is about where that line is probably to me.
I'm looking to see how many times they have punted this. So they average 7 punts a game. They have 1 game of 10 punts, which was obviously the season opener against South Dakota State, the best defense they've faced. But Kevin, you are definitely siding with more punts than points, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you say 3 points, I mean, I don't know how you have 3 points and 2 punts. Unless you're just turning it over every single time or something crazy like that. And I think it's just going to be more punts. I think we're going to see a good amount of 3 and outs. I think we'll see them get like a first down here and there on a couple of the drives. But, I think we're going to see like 9 punts and 3 points.
I have to go with points over punts because I don't see them punting 11. But Tom, you're right on that mark. You're right there.
I'm right on that mark. And it's like, I feel like if I had picked 7 points, I really have to think about it. I think 6, I'm going to take punts over points. But yeah, it's going to be close. And generally when that is true, your record is not all that good in games where that happens.
Not even with an Australian punter, sad to say. Comment here from Steve Buckholz. Any comments on the number 1 offensive lineman, Ian Moore, commitment? Yeah, the Ian Moore, the New Palestine, Indiana, top 100 interior offensive lineman with the number 4 interior offensive lineman, although Ohio State's looking at him as a right tackle, and that's what he's playing there. He's the number one player in Indiana. So he's the second commitment for the Buckeyes in 2024 with Dylan Raiola. It's always interesting to me when a right tackle in high school is looked at as a tackle in college, because it's generally like if you're playing right tackle in high school, it's because you're not good enough to play left tackle. And if you're not a left tackle in high school, you're not good enough to play right tackle in college. So you're an interior line guy. And it seems like the recruiting services feel the same way, but he's 6'5". He's got good length. I think they feel pretty good about his ability to play right tackle. But that's also been, Kevin, the story with a lot of these offensive linemen that Ohio State is getting over the last few years is they're all right tackles almost. It's like there's a lot of right tackles there.
Yeah, and I think this is just a huge get because everybody wanted to see what Justin Fry recruiting was going to look like. There's just been a major hangover from the Greg Studrawa era. Some definite misses along the way, some guys that just have not been able to answer the bell. And we're going to get to the point here with Ohio State of where they're going to need I've got to put somebody in timeout real quick. All right. They're going to have to. No, well, the cat's in the background, but no, something else. They're going to need to sit there and replenish the spots. And the guard tackle question. We have 12 right tackles or whatnot is not necessarily going to necessarily get it done. You got a couple guys that are certainly playing in their last years, in my opinion, on the line right now. We'll see where they go from there. Really, I want to see how they finish off the 23 class, but the fact that they were able to get Ian Moore in 24, somebody that, it never really was a question of if they were going to get Ian Moore. It was when they were going to get Ian Moore. Can they use a little bit of juice out of this to kind of solidify 23s?
Yeah, let's get through some questions, through the rest of these questions before we get out of here. Lightning round, if we will. So please, one-word answers only. Yeah.
No questions about injuries.
Yes. This from Devin. Can a university get fined for running up the score in a competitive sport? Just wondering why the emphasis on sportsmanship is so relevant this season. I do not want to go back to games 1-3. Shake my head. Tom, I think the reason why it's relevant this season is because Ohio State's so good.
Yeah, and Ohio State has been in a position to run it up on virtually everyone other than Notre Dame. And if they played Notre Dame right now, they would probably be in a position to run it up on Notre Dame, knowing what they know now and managing the game accordingly. It's just, you can't get fined. You can, tick people off. You can get a reputation as a jerk who's making people look bad. And, I am not generally of the opinion that this kind of stuff really matters. Like, if you have your backups in, you can still run your regular offense and you're not running up the score. Like, I'm sorry, if you can't stop our third stringers or our second stringers, well, you're getting paid a lot of money to coach football. So I guess you should figure that out. That's my approach, but that's not tended to be Ryan Day's approach.
Yeah. All right. Next one.
From El Suzabo, women in chat, Tony or George Clooney? And I guess, Sue, the question is, for what?
Next question.
No, I think we can slow down lightning round here for a second. Somebody said that George Clooney would be all about himself, but Tony would try harder, whatever that means. But I'm unfortunately Lynn's Breezy and some of our other resident beautiful ladies in the chat were not here to jump in on Sue Zabo, so it was a bunch of guys talking about Tony, and it was very creepy. But yeah, that was pretty funny.
Seems like we got asked the same question about Wagon and have that response. That's a deep cut.
I'm dead. I blew past one of them. Whoops.
Yeah, regarding Iowa running the quarters, I don't know that they do. I haven't heard them running that. Usually when you're facing a quarters defense, that's a special thing, and people will talk about it. I think they just run a base like cover 2, as far as I know, but I don't know that for sure. But this one from Ben Higgins: Ryan Day will not let up in this game. Don't be surprised if he tries to score more than the double nickel that Iowa put up on Ohio State last time. Tom, 56 points. Yes or no?
I say no. I think they get out of town mode. If this was Rutgers or this was Arkansas State next week, maybe. I think who they're playing next week and going on the road next week, you just want to get out of the game healthy and with everyone available for next week.
Kevin, is that an opportunity for Ohio State to show Caden Proctor? Like, shouldn't you come to Ohio
unfortunately,
State?
Ohio State can't beat Iowa so much to like get rid of the state of Iowa. The hometown situation is just going to be too much to overcome. I mean, they weren't able to overcome it with Xavier Wankba. So, no, try as you may, but I don't think that they've got a shot at Caden Proctor.
This one from Wingman Ted. Rank these running backs. Iowa's Caleb Johnson, Ohio State's Xavier Johnson, or Ohio State's Jesse Mirko. Now, when you look at yards per carry, nobody is touching Jesse Mirko's 22 yards per carry. I will also mention Xavier Johnson from Cincinnati, not Australia. Caleb Johnson from Ohio as well, not Australia. So you've already got 2 strikes against each of those two, and Jesse Mirko, 22 yards per carry. You can't argue against that. And he doesn't need blockers. Like, he just goes and does it on his own. Like, he doesn't need to be coached to do it, doesn't need to be told to do it. He just goes and does it. He's a go-getter. That's what you really need in the backfield. So I think you go Jesse Mirko, Caleb Johnson, and Xavier Johnson, because out of respect to Xavier, he views himself as a receiver. So I wouldn't put him in that category.
All right, it's from Steve Hammond. Between Maryland or Penn State, who do you think gives Ohio State more trouble? I feel like I need to know who's playing quarterback in those 2 games, because Talia Tagovailoa left. It looked real bad last week, and then supposedly he's a game-time decision this week.
Decision is what they're saying.
Yeah, speaking of coaches maybe not telling the full truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth about injuries. I mean, that certainly did not look like a game-time decision the next week kind of injury when they took him off the field, but we'll see. Maryland feels much more like a trap game to me because Penn State is, assuming Penn State wins this weekend, there's a history with Penn State that's such that it's a difficult place where Ohio State's played a bunch of close games. It's sort of a brand name program. And, that's the week before Northwestern. So, it's not like they're going to be looking ahead. Maryland is the week before Michigan, end of the season. They're probably healthier for Penn State than they are for Maryland. So I think Maryland is potentially the bigger trap game or the bigger danger of it being a really, really close game late when it maybe shouldn't be.
This from Wolf 58. At some point during the offseason, something has to give with Brian Ferentz, right? I would say yes, and that one thing will be he'll take a football class down at the Learning Annex, and then he'll be ready for 2023, and everybody's going to be very excited. And Kirk will pay for that, but we'll have to be reimbursed from his son. But they'll get it figured out. Maybe the government will pay for it. Who knows? He'll take a class, and he'll be all good to go for 2023.
Unless he becomes like an emancipated minor or something like that, and then they can finally fire him.
Now I'm imagining the 2 of them on Maury and how Brian just wants to live on his own, and he's tired of living under his dad's rules, and his dad being like, if it wasn't for me, you would have nothing. And the crowd would be like, he's right. You might want to listen, Brian.
Brian Ferentz living on his own reminds me of the scene in The Simpsons where Homer pours cereal and milk into a bowl and it catches fire. Like, that would be Brian Ferentz trying to live on his own and 10 minutes in, like, the house is already up in flames, and he canceled the insurance that morning too. Like, no, I've never been a big no, that's not.
Will he go upstairs and will Tony Hawk have a half pipe in there when Bart got emancipated?
This is from obviously Tony Gerdeman's burner account. Would you rather sleep on a cot of shame every day for the whole season or have to watch only Iowa's offense all season? I'd say the Iowa offense, because at least you can watch that in your bed.
What if you had to watch that in the cot?
Oh.
The cot would make my back hurt. The offense would make my brain hurt. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess oh boy, I'm not sure. Can I choose secret option C? No, thank you. Just no. What about no? How about that?
Also sue for emancipation. This from Todd Gump. More carries, Mayan or Trey, Kevin?
I am going to say Trey because Trey could have come back in the Michigan State game if need be, or at least that's what Ryan Day said, whereas Mayan was out, and it may take a little bit more for Mayan to get the lather built back up. So I'll say Trey.
Okay. Next one. Oh wow. Let's all three read this together. 3, 2. No, don't do that. This from John.
I really enjoy it
if we do that.
John Alexander says, I really enjoy this Buckeye huddle. 3 good guys who love college football and know what they're talking about. And I mean, so is that Kevin and myself and Mark, or Kevin, myself, and Alex? Who are the 3? I'm not sure. I mean, if you could share a little more. Who? No, I probably
too vague.
Well, maybe it's me and Mark and Alex. I don't know. But yes, thank you, John. We are enjoying getting to continue working together, getting to continue doing stuff like this with you guys, and pregame shows and postgame shows and all that kind of stuff. That's the community of the here and also on the site has been really one of the most fun parts of this for us.
This from Zinter. How much do you think Knowles and the defensive staff are already peeking at the Michigan running game and preparing an initial game plan? I would be shocked if they're not already looking at it. You've got all of these analysts and staffers and QC guys and GAs, like they're already looking at it. Ryan Day had an interesting comment on his radio show, I believe, like how every game they now get all 22 from every. There's a system where they get all 22s, and then by like midweek, all of the games are up there, including the NFL. So they will like look at NFL games. They're always looking at stuff. So they're certainly going to be looking at Michigan's running game and their defense and all of that, so that they're going to be well prepared, more prepared than they were a year ago, if you know what I'm saying.
And wink, wink, say no more.
Tony, question. I was led to believe they would be taking things one game at a time. Are you saying that is false?
No, I'm saying you're taking one game at a time, but also you're looking at 2 games at a time. This one from blank name. Iowa has been waiting all year to show their total offense against Ohio State. Rumor of a secret meeting before the season. Iowa agreed to basically throw their season away just to beat Ohio State. Tom, you are our resident conspiracy theorist kook. Is this right up your alley?
I mean, I think the only issue I would have with this is read the whole thing and then just say, just to beat Ohio State again. Was this not the plan in 2017? Because it looked that was basically the plan in 2017. It wasn't like they were lighting it up in 2017. So proportionately, the equivalent would be them scoring like 28 points or so, because they weren't this bad in 2017. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that that this was entirely the entire 2017 plan was an enormous, just one enormous plot to solely to get Ohio State, but no. And Tony, if you go to Iowa, I mean, the flat Earth theory, I mean, it seems a little more plausible in Iowa. And yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, no, not really, no. Save your DMs and everything.
I'm appalled, Tom. I am appalled and shocked. Also, this from ABC. Tom, how's it going?
No, you wait. And you put like you need like 7 periods in between those phrases. So you try it again, and we'll
me or ABC.
Well, I mean, he really technically has to submit it. So
yes, this from Stephen Hammond. Can we realistically get a shutout this week? It has been a while since we've gotten one. Would be a nice sight. Kevin, I think a shutout is a realistic possibility. You do not. You have Iowa scoring 3 points.
Well, you have Iowa scoring more than 3 points, so you do not either then. I think that there's a chance. I mean, I think it's a case of, if Iowa is as advertised, it's going to be a slog. It's going to be an issue for them to move the ball. And I think that the Ohio State 2s and 3s could just as easily keep them shut down at this point. Does Iowa at some point go from Spencer Petras, as his friends call him, to their backup? To, I think it's Alex Padilla. What happens in that type of situation? He's a much more mobile quarterback, and that might give Ohio State more issues. So it's been a minute since they pitched a shutout, especially in a league game, but especially not against somebody named Rutgers or Maryland. I don't know. I think it's possible. I kind of wanted to pick a shutout, but then again, I just couldn't bring myself to it.
Yeah, I'm looking for the last Rutgers Big Ten shutout, and it was actually Wisconsin in 2014, the Big Ten championship game. This super chat from obviously Tony Gerderman's burner account. Tom, you have to pick one, either the Cot or Iowa's offense. If you don't choose, you have to watch Iowa's offense on the Cot of Shame.
I guess I'm watching Iowa's offense. I guess. I mean, this is a more difficult decision than you might think. I think I'm really literally in my head right now. I'm just trying to work through. Sometimes when you sleep on a new bed for the first time, your back hurts. But then after you've done it for a few days, you sort of acclimate, and then it's fine. And I'm literally just running through my head the likelihood of sleeping on the Cot of Shame. Would you acclimate to it enough that it would stop hurting your back after a few days, and then you'd be okay?
Being like 3 inches off the ground and I don't think it ever gets better.
But you will acclimate to Iowa's offense, and you don't even have to watch it anymore to have known what's going on. So there's more time for your family, more time for activities, more time to have fun, because you don't actually have to watch Iowa to have known what's going on.
Well, but if I'm watching nothing, but I have to watch Iowa's offense. Like I would assume that's like living downwind from a cow pasture or something where you develop nose blindness. Like you just develop like punt blindness, I guess, at some point with Iowa's offense, where it's just like, well, look, I'm numb to this now. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going with the Cot, but I'm gonna be decisive and say I'm going with the Cot, because I think eventually your back will stop hurting.
All right. This from Yakov 22, our last one before we get out of here. Do you have any thoughts on OSU recruiting running backs with the promise of not treating them as workhorses? Blake Corum is talented, but might have nothing left for an NFL career. And this is something that Ohio State talked about with Travion Henderson and Evan Pryor, about, coming in and splitting carries. And obviously Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson are doing that. And I don't think they're telling anybody that they can come in and, there's no need for you to come in and get 25 carries. 15 is plenty. You're seeing that in the NFL. Blake Corum, I don't think, came to Michigan to be a workhorse. Right now, they're just using him a lot because of Donovan Edwards was injured, and also Blake Corum is very good. Also, Jim Harbaugh has a tendency to run guys into the ground. You saw that with Hassan Haskins last year. Just get as much out of him as possible, and when they go on, that's fine. Go do whatever you want to do with your life. But I think you're going to see more and more of Donovan Edwards in that offense. Oh, yeah. Tom, can you please read this super chat from Jordan Kapler?
Jordan Kapler wants to know, what would be the downside to replacing Tom with a cardboard cutout of Tom? What would be the upside? Now, I will insist that this is like the Michael Jordan cutout or cardboard cutout in Home Alone. I'm going to insist that you strap me to a train and make me go around the room. Just kind of in front of the camera, away from the camera, in front of the camera, away from the camera. All right. So with that, gentlemen, your thoughts.
The downside would be that somebody would have to take all the time to make a cardboard cutout of Tom. I think that is certainly one of the downsides.
Tom would do that.
The upside is
Tony doesn't have one already.
The upside is that when his internet goes out, we wouldn't know the difference between live Tom and cutout Tom, because they kind of are the same.
My internet's been fine. You shut your mouth.
Today.
Please, let's not say things about people's internet that we cannot take back. And people's feelings can get hurt. This is all fun and games.
People's internet can get hurt.
Yeah, until you start talking about people's upload times and all of that stuff. So we don't want to do that. What we do want to do, thank you, Jordan, for that question. And always thank you all for your super chats. That's going to do it for today. I want to thank you all for joining us on this Friday. Iowa week, there's no other week like it. It's like the county fair, but like half the people died in a fire on the way there.
It's terrible. So dark.
You could have just said the county fair with more punts, but you chose another path.
Yeah, yes, I did.
You woke up and chose violence.
But that will do it for us today here. A reminder, check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. BuckeyeNation.com. All three of us are there. Plenty others as well. Mark Gavler and Alex Gleitman handling recruiting. You got Ross Fulton, Devin Radcliffe, Justin Whitlatch handling X's and O's. Going to be some more additions there in that regard. So we've got a lot planned there. Check us out for a month. See what you think. Hit us up on a message board. We're all there. And, of course, you can always find us here at YouTube. If you're watching right now and you haven't turned away, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. We would appreciate that. The algorithms especially would appreciate that. And any subscriptions and hitting the bell to be notified and all of that stuff that you can do. We also appreciate that as well. So that will do it for today. Thanks for joining us and enjoy your weekend.